Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that almost everyone on earth is gone. The cities are silent, highways are empty, airports never reopen. The lights begin to flicker as power stations fail one after another. At first, survival feels like the biggest challenge, but then someone asks a terrifying question that changes everything. How many people would it actually take to save humanity? The answer is far stranger and far more frightening than almost anyone expects. At first, it sounds simple. Put enough people in one safe place, give them food, water, medicine, and wait for civilization to recover. Problem solved, right? Not even close. Because surviving the next few months is one challenge. Surviving the next 10,000 years is something completely different. And that's where the nightmare truly begins. Thousands of years ago, humanity almost disappeared without anyone even realizing it. Scientists studying our DNA found strange clues buried inside every person alive today. It was as if our family tree suddenly became incredibly thin. Almost every branch had vanished. Something catastrophic had happened. Maybe it was a supervolcano, maybe dramatic climate change, maybe years of starvation. Nobody knows for certain. But one thing became clear: our ancestors came dangerously close to extinction. Some researchers believe there may have been only a few thousand breeding humans left on the entire planet. Others argue the number could have been even lower. Human civilization survived, but only just. And that ancient mystery forced scientists to ask a disturbing question. If humanity had fallen even further, what would have been the point of no return? At first, people assumed the answer was easy. 100 people? 50? Maybe 20? Movies often show a handful of survivors rebuilding the world. A small community plants crops, has children, rebuilds cities, and somehow everything works out. It makes for a great story. Reality is much darker. Because humans don't just need babies, humans need healthy generations. That changes everything. Imagine only 10 people survive. Even if there are equal numbers of men and women, everyone quickly becomes closely related. Their children grow up with very few options for partners. Then their grandchildren have even fewer. Generation after generation, harmful genetic mutations begin stacking together like invisible dominoes. Diseases become more common. Birth defects increase. Fertility drops. Every generation becomes weaker than the last. The population may appear to grow, but underneath it's quietly collapsing. And the real problem was just beginning. Nature has already shown us what happens. One famous example comes from the cheetah. Thousands of years ago, cheetahs experienced an extreme population crash. Today, scientists believe they're so genetically similar that unrelated cheetahs can accept skin grafts from one another. At first, that sounds incredible until you realize what it actually means. They lost enormous amounts of genetic diversity. Now they're vulnerable to disease, environmental change, and reproductive problems. Their biggest enemy isn't another predator, it's their own DNA. Humans would face the exact same danger, only with far more complicated societies to rebuild. Because even if everyone remained perfectly healthy, who knows how to build a power plant? Who can manufacture antibiotics? Who understands satellites? Who repairs aircraft? Who grows enough food for millions? Civilization isn't one invention. It's millions of tiny pieces connected together. Lose enough pieces? and the entire machine stops working. Nobody could have predicted what came next. Scientists began creating computer models. Instead of asking how many people could survive, they asked how many people could preserve enough genetic diversity to avoid disaster for centuries. The numbers were surprising. Some early estimates suggested around 160 people under extremely controlled conditions. Others pushed the number into the hundreds. Then hundreds became thousands. Because genetics wasn't the only problem anymore. Knowledge became the bigger threat. Imagine you have 500 healthy survivors. Fantastic. Now ask another question. How many understand modern medicine? Maybe 10? How many know how electrical grids operate? 3. How many know semiconductor manufacturing? Perhaps none. Suddenly, humanity isn't just losing people, it's losing memory. Knowledge disappears much faster than most people realize. One retired engineer dies, an entire lifetime of experience disappears forever. One surgeon dies, decades of medical skill vanish overnight. Libraries help, computers help, but if electricity disappears, books become priceless and people become irreplaceable. This single realization changed everything. Experts stopped asking about survival. They started asking about civilization. Because these are two completely different questions. Humans survived for hundreds of thousands of years without smartphones, without airplanes, without electricity, without the internet. But rebuilding modern civilization from scratch? That could take centuries, or perhaps never happen again. Picture a child born 20 years after the disaster. They've never seen an airplane, never used the internet, never switched on a television. To them, the old world sounds like mythology. Their grandparents speak about satellites orbiting Earth, artificial intelligence, skyscrapers, space stations. The children smile politely. It sounds impossible, like dragons, like magic. And slowly, the truth disappears. But the hidden danger wasn't over. Because humans don't only inherit genes, we inherit culture. Languages disappear, music disappears, recipes disappear, religions change, history becomes distorted, stories become legends, facts become myths. Within just a few generations, survivors may no longer remember what really happened. The greatest civilization in history, reduced to campfire stories. Then another terrifying problem appears: psychology. Imagine carrying the responsibility of restarting humanity. Every decision matters. Who has children with whom? Who leads? Who makes medical decisions? Who controls resources? Power struggles become inevitable. Fear spreads. Trust collapses. One mistake could affect generations yet unborn. Pressure becomes unbearable. History has shown that isolated communities often suffer from conflict long before they run out of food. Because humans don't just fight over survival, they fight over power, hope, fear, control, and sometimes simple misunderstandings. What happened next shocked everyone. Researchers studying isolated populations discovered that small communities often become incredibly fragile. One disease outbreak, one failed harvest, one accident, one natural disaster, everything changes. If there are only a few hundred people left, losing 50 isn't merely tragic. It could permanently damage humanity's future. Every single life becomes statistically priceless. Suddenly, the oldest mechanic matters as much as the youngest doctor. The quiet librarian becomes as valuable as the strongest soldier. Knowledge becomes the new currency. Experience becomes treasure. Even memory becomes survival. Now imagine another scenario. Instead of one settlement, several independent communities survive across the planet. At first, this seems worse. They're separated, communication is impossible, resources are limited. But over decades, something remarkable happens. Eventually, they reconnect. Different groups have preserved different skills, different genetic traits, different ideas, different technologies. Instead of one tiny gene pool, humanity begins mixing once again. And suddenly the odds improve dramatically. Isolation nearly destroyed us. Connection saves us. It's one of civilization's oldest lessons, but nobody could have predicted the biggest twist of all. The answer might not actually depend on people alone. Today, humanity stores millions of seeds inside giant underground vaults. Frozen embryos exist. Genetic databases continue growing. Entire libraries can fit onto tiny storage devices. Scientists preserve animal DNA, plant DNA, microbial DNA. Modern civilization has quietly been building backup systems. Almost like we subconsciously know disaster is possible. Imagine survivors discovering one of these vaults centuries later. Inside isn't gold, it's possibility, the future hidden beneath layers of ice. Suddenly, humanity gains something previous civilizations never had: a second chance. Yet, even these backups have limits. Machines break, power fails, time wins. Knowledge still needs living minds. A library without readers is just paper. Technology without teachers becomes mystery, and mystery slowly becomes myth. The greatest threat isn't extinction, it's forgetting. Then comes perhaps the most uncomfortable truth. The exact number may never exist because survival depends on countless variables: age distribution, health, genetic diversity, skills, geography, resources, climate, luck, especially luck. 1,000 people trapped on a frozen island might fail. 200 well prepared people in fertile land with preserved knowledge might succeed. Numbers matter, but preparation matters even more. And that's where modern civilization reveals its greatest strength. We're not just billions of individuals, we're billions of specialists connected together. Every morning, millions of strangers cooperate without ever meeting. Farmers grow food for people they'll never know. Engineers design bridges they'll never cross. Doctors save lives they'll never hear about again. Programmers build systems that power entire countries. Civilization works because invisible cooperation exists everywhere. Break enough of those invisible connections, and even billions can become vulnerable. History has witnessed this before. The fall of great empires didn't always happen because everyone died. Sometimes trade collapsed, knowledge disappeared, institutions failed, roads crumbled, skills vanished. Generations later, people walked among magnificent ruins without understanding how they had been built. Imagine that happening globally. One generation remembers the old world, the next remembers fragments, the third remembers legends, the fourth remembers almost nothing. Humanity survives, civilization doesn't, and that's a very different ending. Scientists often discuss something called the minimum viable population. Depending on the assumptions, estimates can range from a few hundred under carefully managed conditions to several thousand or more for long term resilience and healthy genetic diversity. There isn't a single magic number because real life is messy, unpredictable, and shaped by chance as much as science. That uncertainty is the most unsettling part because it means humanity's future has never depended on one hero, or one genius, or one invention. It has always depended on countless ordinary people doing extraordinary things together. The electrician who keeps hospitals running, the nurse who comforts strangers, the teacher who passes knowledge forward, the scientist preserving seeds, the mechanic repairing generators, the parent teaching a child to read. Every one of them quietly carries a piece of civilization. Take enough pieces away, and the picture disappears. So, what's the fewest people that could repopulate the earth? The unsettling answer is that nobody can give a perfect number. A few hundred might keep our genes alive under ideal conditions. Several thousand would give humanity a far better chance of preserving diversity, skills, and resilience over generations. But if the knowledge, cooperation, and trust that built civilization vanish, even millions may not be enough to bring our world back. Because humanity was never saved by population alone. It was saved by people choosing to work together, pass knowledge to the next generation, and protect the fragile chain connecting the past to the future. That invisible chain is the rarest resource on earth. Break it, and rebuilding humanity may be far harder than surviving the end of the world itself.